Okay, we're going to get started in about 1 minute. We've got people that are logging in right now, and this is the third in a series of effective sales presentations conducted by Bill Attardi. And Bill, before we get started, I just want to congratulate you. I checked YouTube right before we started. You've got 166 views on both of your first two.
Wow, that's great.
So it's a good start. It's a good start, but I bet we'll get over 500 once we have all three of them out. And then we're going to promote all three of them in a series.
Okay,
And
great.
I'm sure that will help pick it up. But 166 is a nice start. And we are now 1 minute after. And as a former military man, we always like to start on time. So Bill, without any further ado, I will turn it over to you.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Randy. And hello, everybody. This is lesson number 3. Okay, we just did 2 lessons on May 2nd and May 9th, and today is May 16th. So we're going to do lesson 3. And when we left off last week, we talked about the brain, right? And we talked about how the brain works, and got good reception from everybody because we all pretty much understand about the left side and the right side. And I know you probably know some people that have no brains. I've got some in my family, but other than that, brains are a very important thing. If you're going to be talking to people, and that's what effective presentation skills is all about, communications. And when you're talking to people, you have to understand a little bit about how they think, okay? And bottom line is the left side is the verbal or the words side of the brain, and the right side is the emotion. It's the visual, it's the color side, okay? Now, what I like to share with you, and this is a little esoteric, but on the graduate level at Monmouth University, we talk about the brain in this regard. We classify the left side of the brain as the cognitive side, and the right side is the affective side. And when both brains are working at the same time, the course we teach talks about conative. And this is what it looks like. It's called the hierarchy of effects model. And I thought maybe you'd be some interest in that, because this is really about sales and about making the purchase, closing the sale. And when you look at the process of what people go through in order to make a purchase, you've got that awareness, knowledge, liking, preference, conviction, and then finally you make the purchase. Well, the brain has to be in sync with that process. And when it comes to awareness and knowledge, it's the cognitive side of the brain. And when it comes to the emotion, the liking, the preference, it's the affective side. And then the brain working together is called the conative. So you got the intellect, the emotion, and the action. You got the left side, the right side, and both. Just to give you a little sense as to how people think, because if you're making a presentation to a group of people, I think it's important that you understand what the thinking is in that particular room, okay? Again, the focus is always and will continue to be on the customer, and that is your audience. Just to review very quickly, I got 2 slides to give you a sense, since we talk about selling, and that selling is simply communicating. That's all we're talking about. That's what presentation skills is all about. It's communicating. And the most powerful sales tool in your bag is what you say and then what you follow up to do, okay? Customer benefit sales approach. We've talked about that. I'm sure over your careers, and those of you that have been in sales for a long time, you know about the benefit sales approach. You sell the result. It's a high level of communication. And don't forget the platinum rule. Treat your customers as they want to be treated, okay? It's benefit selling. And remember the analysis we did about Bose and with lighting? Bose, they sell speakers and headphones and radios, but customers buy music. It's the same thing what you sell. You sell luminaires and fixtures and light bulbs and things like that, but the customers buy light. They buy the benefit, they buy the result, they buy what they get from the particular product that you're trying to sell. Again, you have an obligation as a consultant in the selling approach to do two things: to help customers solve problems and to help them make the best decisions. And hopefully it's a product that you have that gives the benefit to that customer that does both of those things. Remember, customers have a pain point. When they need a product, when they need a service, when they need something from you specifically, it's to solve a pain point. Think of yourself as a doctor. When you go to a doctor, what does he ask you? Where's the pain? Where's the discomfort? That's what you have to surface with your customers. What's the pain point? And then your obligation is to improve the benefit of your particular customer. Okay? Any questions? Any questions so far?
If you do have
Just
a
wanted to
question,
give you a quick update as to where we are, and then we'll get into the specifics of this particular session, which deals with the game plan, really, as to what we're going to do for effective presentation skills. Again, it's all about communication skills, highly developed oral and written communication skills. And I hope this particular session doesn't end with you forgetting about that particular message, because you need to improve your communication skills on an ongoing basis. It's a lifetime learning experience. Stimulate the thinking of your audience. That's what we're talking about. When you communicate to an audience, to a group of people, what you're hopefully doing is stimulating their thinking. That's why I spent the time on how the brain works. Because if you understand that clearly, then when you put your presentation together, you're going to focus on the way people think. The first session was all about preparation. How do you prepare for a presentation? And then last week, we did presentation strategy. Those two things are the hard work in any presentation. And some of you, I'm sure, are giving a presentation next week at Light Fair, right? It's in New York City, and Light Fair is a major event for the lighting industry. And you probably did all the preparation and presentation already, right? Well, if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Anyway, that's the hard work. I want to make that clear. Why is that the hard work? Because that focuses on the content. The content is what we spent the first two sessions on. Now that we have it all together, we have all the information we need. Now it's time to organize it, putting it into an organized presentation techniques. How do you present it properly? And then what is your personal delivery? How do you personally deliver a particular presentation to an audience? That's what we're going to cover now. Mahatma Gandhi. Live as if you were to die tomorrow. Learn as if you were to live forever. That's you know what learning is? Learning is a continuing thing. It's not something you do once in a while. You do it all the time. Anyway, let's talk about organizing your presentation. I want you to organize it and think about that closet. Is that an organized closet or what? I don't know how many of you have closets that are organized like that. Some of you are very good at organizing, and others, you need to work at it, okay? Anyway, when you give a presentation, the audience expects you to be organized, expects to have thoughts that follow each other so they can follow it effectively. I'm going to cover this one at a time, and it's a technique in presentations that I want you to think about as I go through this particular part of the presentation. The first point I want to make is keep your audience in mind. Who are you speaking to? Always, always think of your audience first. Whenever you put a presentation together, have in the back of your mind who you are speaking to. Yes, you're speaking to a group, but they're all individuals, individual people in that audience. Preparation, we talked about that. It should all be done, internal, external research. A lot of work has to go into the preparation side. Once you decide and have all the material, then think about what color template you want. We talked about that last week. We talked about the meaning of different colors. So color becomes an important part of your presentation. It's the visual part. It's the emotional part. It's the people's attention part. So think about the right color and the right template and fonts to use for your presentation. Then think about, once you have all the material, say, okay, how can I really get them? How can I get them to pay attention to what I'm trying to say? That's called a creative opening. That's your first impression. When you give a presentation, it's the first thing that you want people to remember, the first impression of your presentation. Next is the content. And if you pulled it all together properly, sure, you're sharing what you know, and it's got to have some meaning, not to you, but to the audience. The audience is why they're there to listen to you, and you have to put together a presentation that is meaningful to that audience. Again, organizing your presentation. Remember the 6x6 rule? 6 words across, 6 lines down. Minimum font, I like to use 28 point as the minimum. You can go to 24, but it forces you to put thought starters on a slide and not long sentences, because long sentences, you're going to lose your audience. They cannot listen to you and read a long sentence on a slide. What you can, when you only put 6 words across, boom, they get that as a thought starter, and then they can listen to your explanation. Good flow, very important in every organizing your presentation. A good flow. It's got to be logical. It's got to have an interactive order to it. It's got to be something that the audience can follow very effectively. Prepare good questions throughout. If you want to get interaction, try to prepare questions throughout your presentation to get the audience involved. And last, and this one is, use verbal and visual together. Images have power. Just as this particular image says, you start here and then you could go different ways with your presentation, but make sure you have verbal and visual content to your presentation. Also, if you can, try to incorporate some humor into your slides. It's got to tie into the content. Don't come out of left field with something that doesn't fit. Also, be careful with off-color humor. Anything that could be viewed as obscene or crude, you got to be careful with that. In fact, in today's environment, I would say probably stay away from it altogether. Decide what and if videos are appropriate. Sometimes a video, like I like to use in some of my presentations right at the beginning, as the creative input, creative start of a presentation. Decide if you want questions during or at the end. If you want the audience to participate in your presentation and ask questions throughout, you have to indicate that right at the beginning of your presentation. Or if you ask them to save the questions till the end, then the audience knows the preferred way that you as the speaker will want. And the final thing is your compelling close. I said that the opening is a creative opening and it's your first impression. Well, your close has got to be compelling. It's got to be the last impression that you leave with people. And you may want to create that layer first. You may want to create the close first. And think about a GPS system. You always put in the destination and they lay out the entire route right to the end. That's a very good, effective way to get you to follow along and organize your presentation very effectively. Any questions so far?
Any question? Bill, I just want to note your capitalization. It appears that you capitalize every word in the title, and then you capitalize the first word only of your bullet points. Is that the rule?
Yes. When you start with a thought start, you see, and that's because think about your presentation as the way people read. People read, every sentence starts with a capital first letter. Okay, and then it's upper and lowercase the rest of the way. As you can see on this particular, may want to create the first, that to me is for emphasis. That's the only time I think you should use all capitalizations, is when you want to emphasize a particular sentence. Your title here is in upper and lowercase because that's a title, and a lot of titles are use a capital in the first word. So it's the way people read, the way people are used to, and you don't want distractions in your presentation. So the best way to do that is to play along with the way people are used to reading information.
And I noticed that you don't have periods after your bullet points, and I always find those distracting.
Yes, in fact, I even say that in my classes. If you're using commas and periods, that means you're putting sentences down.
Right.
That's what you should not do. Sentences are not something people want to see on a slide. They want to see thought starters. Just put 6 words across, and then you have an obligation to say more than you show. You say, you explain what that particular thought starter is all about, and now they can listen, and once they get the thought starter in their brain, then they can listen to your explanation. That's a very powerful way to get people to listen to what you're saying. Okay.
Thank you.
Those were 15 points. And as you noticed, I covered each one of those points individually. There's another way to present something like that. And let me show you. Here's another way to present the exact same information. You can put all 5 points up and you can highlight the point you want to talk about. Yes, they'll be able to see all of this, and that's not a bad idea sometimes to let people see all of it. So you have to pause a little bit, let people look at all these thought starters, but then you're going to focus on what's highlighted. And this is the one that's highlighted. And then after you explain that, you go to the next slide and you can highlight the point that you want to make, which is point number 2. And then number 3. And you can go through your entire 15 points very much like that. And that's another way to present, where you want to focus and you want your audience to follow specifically the thought starter that you want to talk about. Clear? I hope that's clear. And if you have any questions, please interrupt me at any time. Okay. It looks like we're in the water. It looks like we're swimming a little bit. All right. So hang in there, guys, because we're going to get into now effective presentation techniques. Very important, effective presentation technique. Creative positive contact, eye contact. Some of the people were saying that I was looking down when I was giving the presentation. And part of the reason, I've got to get used to this virtual stuff, I got to tell you guys, you know, when I'm in class, I have no problem with eye contact. I make a very strong point to make sure I have eye contact with everybody in the audience. And you should do that. Anytime you give a presentation, even if it's for 200 people, try to make contact with everybody in the audience throughout your presentation. That's because you're still talking to individuals, not just to a group, okay? Anyway, hard to do virtually. I got to look up at the camera here. And maybe this is better than the last 2 sessions. I hope so. And I'm going to get my critique from my good friends. Okay, please, I want that. Anyway, involve them in your questions. Right from the beginning, I like to get people, especially in a virtual presentation, involved with questions. Promote interaction throughout, give and take. As you noticed, I put all 3 of these thought starters on. When I did the organization part, I covered them one at a time. Another way to cover particular thought starters is to put 2 or 3 together that basically are good together. And these 3 all deal with positive contact, ask questions, promote interaction. So you can cover those 3 points together as really one thought starter. And then you can summarize what you're saying by saying the reason you want to do those 3 things is because you want to move your audience from passive listeners to active participants. That could be really a very powerful way. Much harder to do virtual. It's very hard for me to get you people to come up with questions, or they get involved in the presentation. We got to learn how to do that,
Okay.
because
So,
that's more effective.
so Bill, we've got Michael Hawkins is participating right now, and
Great.
he got something kind of interesting. He says it goes back to the eye contact thing. There's a plugin that makes your eyes look at the camera, even if you're reading a script.
Okay,
Okay, I got to find that out myself.
Yeah,
That
Michael, am I looking at the camera right now, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, and I can look down now at the slides and still look at the camera. Again, that's some of the things, that's something I have to work on, because a virtual is, even though I did a whole semester with students at Monmouth, it's still a new process for people, even with me, that have done it for a long time. I
But
still
for
like
the audience, it's called NVIDIA, NVIDIA. And so
okay,
you could be looking down all you want, but the artificial intelligence, it's going to make it appear
that you're looking at the
looking
camera.
So thank you for
Great
that,
suggestion. Michael, thank you so much. I hope people have wrote that down, so that you can access that when you need to. All right. Okay. 4, 5, and 6. Confirm. Try to get confirmation in your presentations, and you can ask for agreement or disagreement. The one thing about agreement and disagreement, every presentation that you listen to, whether you listen to me or to Randy and if you're going to be at Light Fair next week, you're going to be listening to a number of speakers. 2 things happen in every presentation. You buy in to what the person is saying, or you discard it completely. And both are fine. Both are okay. It's okay to discard anything that you feel does not tie into the way you think. That's the whole purpose of all of this. I say that to my class, think for yourself. Just buy into what you think makes sense for you, and totally discard things that don't make sense, because you have to think for yourself. So get confirmation. And the Italians like to use the word mi spiego, mi spiego. Don't say, do you understand? Do you understand? Think about that. That's kind of in your face. Do you understand me? You don't want to say, that's what your mother and father used to say to you. You better understand. Now, when you say mi spiego, did I make myself clear? Am I clear in what I just said? That puts the onus on you, and that's a good way to continue to connect with your audience in a non-forceful way. Reinforce the need to continue the process, and never ever close on someone else's question. Never ever close on someone else's question. I'm going to ask you all to think about that. How do you do that? Because one of the worst things you can do at the close is to ask for questions, and then someone asks a question that you can't answer. You can't answer the question, and you say to that person, I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that question. Thank you very much for coming, and you close your. Is that your last impression? A question you can't answer? I don't think you want that. So how do you do that? What words do you use to never close on someone else's question? I'm going to ask that later. Think about that. I want to know from any of you, what are the words you use to never ever close on someone else's question? Think about it, and we'll cover it later. Okay, here's something I hope you never, ever, ever do. For my presentation today, I'll be reading the PowerPoint slides word for word. And you can see there's a period at the end. That's a sentence. Never, ever read a PowerPoint presentation. People know how to read. They're not there to read. They're there to listen to what you have to say. They're there to listen to your explanation. All you need to do is put thought starters down. Put the thought starters down. That's the only thing you put down. And then you have an obligation to explain and offer your share what you know to your audience based on what they're seeing on the slide. Okay, the actual presentation now. We're getting close to actually getting up in front of the class, front of the group, okay? Creative opening, as I said, it's your first impression. Work hard at it. Introduce yourself, name, responsibility, title, whatever. The point I'm making here is that Sometimes you're going to have somebody introduce you, and that's fine. Other times you don't have that. And I always like to start with the creative opening, even before you introduce yourself. Start with that opening. That's the first impression. And then you can introduce yourself properly. It's again, it's what you're comfortable with. You can introduce yourself first and then do the opening, but you decide. Either one works fine. I like to do the opening first to get their attention, and then you introduce yourself to them. Meaningful content. Again, preparation is all about pulling together meaningful content. You're sharing what you know with others. You're reinforcing selling points. Thought starters. That's what you got to put down. Thought starters. Connect with your audience, organize the flow, and we're going to be talking about that. Interactive conversation. You want to make positive contact on an ongoing basis with your customers. Questions and answers. Again, if you want to get interaction, you may want to do it throughout your presentation, that anytime they want to ask a question, and if it's a small group, especially in a sales presentation, you want to encourage that. You want anyone in the audience to interrupt you at any time with a question for clarification. You want to sell. You want to get the purchase order at the end. You want to make sure that all their questions are answered throughout your presentation. Other presentations, like at Light Fair or some other industry event, you may want to ask the audience to save the questions for the end. That's up to you, based on what you think you want to get out of your audience and what your purpose is. That's an option that you have. Compelling close. It's always the last impression. It's the last thing you leave people with. You want to make that right, just like you want to make the opening right. You want it to. The opening is gives you the opportunity for those people to listen to what you have to say. The close is the after effect. It's the lasting impression, and you want that to be a very positive impact. So if you have a close, and I said to you earlier, never ever close on someone else's question. How do you do that? I'd like to open that up there. Give me the words that you say to your audience that says, never close on someone else's question.
Okay,
Anybody have an answer?
We've got one from Lexi. I'm not sure the answer to that. Let me gather some information and I will get back to you.
I will get back to you. But then what do you say? That's the end? You see, the point is, you answered the question fine, but you still, is that your close? Is that a really lasting impression, compelling close? Okay. You're at the end, you're asked for questions, and now you've got a few questions. You don't want to close on someone's question. So you can't say thank you, or that's it, or the end. Those aren't compelling closes, folks. So what do? And here's the way I think you do it. Before I thank you very much for your question. I don't have the answer to that question, but before I close, are there any other questions? What are you saying to the audience? You're saying, hey, baby, I'm not done. Right. I can't answer that question, but I'm not finished yet. That's what that says. Before I close, are there any other questions? And then you answer all the questions, and then you have to go to closing slides. Never, ever not have another slide in your quiver, okay? You must save last impression slides. Those are very important. And you don't end on someone else's question, you end on your particular slides. And those could be anything. And we're gonna talk about that. Okay, everybody's in the water now. We're all having fun, right? Does that make sense? Did that make sense to everybody? Before I close, are there any questions? Okay, now we're going to cover the last point, personal delivery. Very quickly, personal delivery really has 4 points to it. Audience, the room, your body, and the invoice, and your voice. Audience, remember, you're talking to individuals. If you can make contact, I'm trying to make contact in this virtual thing. It's much easier face to face. Reach out, your hands, put your hands out. Don't put them in your pocket. Don't put them behind your back. Someone said that when you do that, it's like dealing cards from under the table. Keep your hands out in front of you. Get agreement, maintain control. The room, very important. Left is right. What they mean is that you stand to the left of the audience and your PCs are to your left. 45-degree angle, more light is better, no upstaging. What that means is if you have 2 or 3 speakers, when you're speaking, make sure the other people are off the stage or off to the side. You don't want all 4 people standing up and only 1 person talking, okay? That's called upstaging. And smile. It's always a good idea to smile. I'm going to make a point of the room positioning. Very important. This is an excellent slide, and it's an ideal positioning if you think about giving a good presentation. As you can see, this is a sales presentation with 5 people in the audience. The salesman is at the head of the room on a 45-degree angle. He's at the audience's left, and the presentation screen is on the audience's right. That's how you read, left to right. You listen to the speaker and you move your eyes to the right to the screen, left to right, left to right. And the other important thing is his laptop is right in front of him. He knows that everything that's on that screen is also on his laptop. That means he never has to turn his back on the audience. Try to think about that. Don't ever try to, unless you have to make a point on something on the screen, try never to turn your back on an audience. Stay in front, keep eye contact, and you know that everything on that screen is right in front of you, okay? This is an ideal positioning in a room, and it's a very good slide to demonstrate that. This is, again, I'm using a red background, right? Remember, stop, good, stop, and good, good and bad. It's both sides of the passion and evil. Light the room. You don't need 35mm. I know the Howard Wolfmans of the world, like me, we used to use 35mm slides, and we needed a dark room in order to show it. Today, you don't need it. Anyway, your personal delivery. Let's get into that now, okay? Your body, the rest position, eye contact, hands, no hands, non-verbal gestures. Remember, communication also has non-verbal gestures, and try to make them as positive as possible, okay? Your voice, don't forget to breathe, project your voice, vocal transitions, top in, low in, modulate your voice. You don't want to be a monotone, work on that. Some people have a natural monotone voice. Unfortunately, that doesn't work in a presentation. You need to modulate your voice properly to give emphasis to the points you're trying to make. Always say more than you show, and avoid those vocal distractions. The one thing that's important in personal delivery is that you need to show that you're in charge, that you have command of what you're saying and what you're doing. And you're in front of the audience. They came to hear and listen to what you have to say. So act that way. Have that particular demeanor in front of that audience, and you're going to get a very positive impact from the audience. Okay, everybody awake? I hope so, because we're almost done. We're almost at the end of the presentation. Our friend George Burns, you remember what he said? The secret of a good sermon is to have a good beginning and a good ending, and to have the two as close together as possible. That's true too, but that's a sermon. There's no give and take in a sermon. It's the preacher preaching to you, okay? So maybe that's a good saying. And if you want to use it for impact, I like to use a white slide if you want to say the same thing for impact, but don't confuse a sermon with a good, effective presentation. Okay? Okay. Before I close, are there any questions?
Oh, I do have a question for the audience. I'd like to ask the audience if anyone has used the designer tool on PowerPoint, which is also the AI tool to help with presentations. Okay, I'm not seeing any response. I've used it a few times, and you've got to have, I think, 1 or 2 pictures and 3 or 4 bullet points before it will work. If you just got one picture and one bullet point, it won't. But it will take it, and it will really make it into a beautiful slide. So it's on the the Office 365 version of PowerPoint. And if you haven't tried it, it's on the right-hand side. It's called Designer. It's got a little lightning bolt. And do try it because it has sure improved a few of my slides. Okay, Michael, I have looked at it for inspiration, but not stuck with it. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, see, when you show something like this in a slide, before I close, you know that any questions that you couldn't answer, that's not going to end your particular talk. So what I could do now is my final slides. Those are the ones that I want to leave you with. And it's a summary slide. It's talking about what are the overall things that you must consider to give a good, effective presentation. You got to do the research. You got to marry verbal and visual. Use 28-point thought starter slides, the 6x6 rule, color, promote interaction if you can throughout. Remember, there's 3 things that you have to focus on to tie it together properly: creative opening, content, meaningful content, and a compelling close. And don't forget, before I close, are there any questions? And you owe your audience a good performance. That means your attitude has to be good. You have to optimize your own individual personal style. You have to develop good habits and eliminate distractions. You got to work at it. This is not something that most people are natural at. Some are, but most people have to work hard at it. The opening is the first impression, content is what you're sharing, and the close is your lasting impression. Test your speaking and communication skills. Be clear, articulate, maintain eye contact. You're in charge. You've been asked to give a presentation. Make sure that you can maintain control. Have confidence in your material and commit yourself to improve on an ongoing basis. I like to think sometimes before you go on, you close your eyes and you come up with, yes, I've got confidence in my content. It's directly with, I did a lot of work. I played hard. That's the game on Sunday. You know that if you ever in a sports environment, that if you worked hard at the preparation, that you feel good about, you can't wait for the game to start. Same thing with a presentation. And if you made it applicable to the audience, then you would say to yourself, you know, I would listen to myself because this is going to be good. And then the last thing is project acceptance. Yes, acceptance. Expect the best. Always prepare for the worst, but expect the best that you get from your audience. My friend or Coach Bear Bryant, okay? I make my practices real hard because if a player is a quitter, I want him to quit in practice, not in a game. That's Coach Bryant. It's game day, folks. If you have a presentation next week, I hope you can follow some of the thoughts that we talked about, because LightFair needs you to give a good, effective presentation. And you have to develop your highly developed oral and communication skills. Can you give me 5 more minutes, folks? 5 more minutes, because I want to, and if you have to leave, fine, but I just like to get your thinking on this and close with this particular slide. You know, Bob Dylan wrote a song called Times They Are A-Changin'. And you know, for us old timers that have been around for a while, the last 50 years have been really, really dramatic. The most dramatic 50 years in the human's lifetime, right? But think about it. What do you think about the next 50 years? If the last 50 years were dynamite, what do you think about the next 50 years? And many of you are going to experience what's going to happen in the next 50 years. So here's my question. Can you come up with a company or a technology that's going to affect you the most in the next 50 years? I've got 20 of them down here, and I'd like you to think about it a little bit and to think about a company or a technology that you feel will have a major impact on your life and the life of your family and friends in the next 50 years? Let's come up with some. Let's see if we can agree on some.
I would say AI is the most
AI
obvious
has got to
one.
be on the top of the list. Artificial intelligence, right? Absolutely. What else? Name a company that's influencing your life today and will certainly have an impact in the next 50 years.
For me, I would say Apple.
Apple, certainly. Anybody else?
All right, Mr. Wolfman says Tesla.
Tesla, absolutely.
Sally
Tesla,
Lee, Eli Lilly, and pharma. And I hadn't thought
okay.
about that.
Okay.
Lexi says new transportation.
Okay, let me put up the first list. In the lighting business, you know about 3D printing, don't you? Some companies are printing fixtures right on their copy machine. AI, I think Airbnb having major impact on the hospitality business. Amazon has got an Apple. Have you heard of Butterfly IQ?
No.
Anybody ever hear of Butterfly IQ? Look it up. You won't believe it. This is a handheld echo X-ray machine that you can hand, a doctor can hand in his hand. He plugs it into his iPhone, and now he can see inside your body as an echo machine does. Think about that.
Wow.
And Butterfly IQ, drones, you chat GPT. We're concerned about that in academia because students now are using that to write up reports and do stuff, and it's becoming more and more available. My buddy Chris Brown is into indoor farming. I think he's going to have an impact in the next 50 years, okay? If he lives to be 150, that is. Anyway, LED, Li-Fi, we connect right now with Wi-Fi, but Li-Fi has some real potential. The metaverse, Microsoft, pandemics, renewables. Make sense? How about robotics, social media, Internet of Things? You've got both Musk and Jeff Bezos with SpaceX and Blue Horizon doing space travel, streaming, the power over the Ethernet, Tesla, self-driving cars, Uber is testing self-driving cars. Think about whether you want to own a car in the next 50 years. You only use it 10% of the time. Most of the time it's parked. And suppose some company offered you a service that said, we can send you a self-driving car anytime you want it, and you don't have to pay for gas, you don't have to pay for insurance, you don't have to house it in a garage. All you do is pay for the service. Think about whether you want to own a car in the next 50 years. Any event, we got smart anything everywhere, and many, many, many more things are going to be created over the next 50 years. And when you talk about that, innovation and prosperity is going to be unbelievable for most people. But here's my question, and I want to end on this. Will your future be better than my 50 years, my past? The call to action on this presentation and the 3 presentations that we gave is this. For each and every single one of you, I think it's important that you work hard to get better. Because when you stop getting better, you stop being good. I wish you all the best. I hope you had some fun with us and that you got some information that you can use that will better what you do in your presentation. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again soon.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill. This has been wonderful. It's been a lot of fun, and we will work to get this video edited, and we will put it up on YouTube, and we will have it there by the end of the week. So we want to thank our host, Bill Attardi, and we want to thank our great audience. Take care. Bye-bye.